Here, look. I have a crystal glass in my hand. It is beautiful on the outside, but very fragile on the inside. Any wrong move can break it. If you walk past hitting it, it will fall and break. If you accidentally hit another glass with it, it can also break. But this is a material. You can replace it, buy a new one, and throw away the broken one. But what do you do if your body is like that? Don't get it? Well, let me explain. My name is Kian, and I have a very rare disease. My bones are too fragile. This disease is also called marble bone disease. We say it is like being in walking crystal glass. The outside world is very dangerous for me. In addition to the fact that I cannot move quickly, bump into or hit things, play sports, run fast, hug and shake hands, I also cannot get sick. Colds oftentimes cause sneezing and coughing. So once when I had a strong cough, I broke 2 ribs. The illness was not immediately noticed. Shortly speaking, I was born and raised in a normal family. In addition to my parents, I also have a little sister, Darcy. At a young age, my mother sent me to kindergarten and everything was fine. I just loved playing dodgeball. I have a bunch of photos from that time. My father said that when Darcy was born, we began to take the family trips into nature more often. We would arrange whole camping trips, always stopped by the river where I swam for hours. Then I helped my father find and break wood, make bonfires and cook food. It was a magical time. Well, then I grew older and it was time to go to school. That's where my difficulties began. As I remember now, it was winter, the usual PE class at school. The guys and I ran out into the schoolyard and ran 1 lap in the frosty air. After that, my bones began to ache. I thought that I had caught a cold and did not pay much attention to it. Mom, as always, shoved pills in me, but I didn't have a runny nose or temperature as someone usually would. It seemed strange. The pain in the bones did not go away. On the 3rd day, I decided that it was most because I wasn't used to running in the cold. So I lived as I lived before. The pain got worse, or got better for a long time. Well, then I went to the ice skating rink with my friends. I skated great since childhood, but that day I stumbled and fell. I broke my leg. So I laid at home with a cast on it for 3 months. It was a sad time. I was not allowed to do anything that I loved. Running, skating. My fracture was not severe, more like a crack, but it took so long to heal. Much longer than the doctor predicted. When time passed and I got stronger, I went back to school, and on the very first day, when a high school student accidentally pushed me during the break, I broke my arm. Once again, I experienced the familiar feeling of terrible pain. On the way to the hospital, I opened the emergency car door with my other hand, groaning in pain. But the door pushed my leg slightly, and then again, there was the pain. It's good that nothing broke. When I arrived at the hospital, the doctors began to examine me. I could not stand up normally because of a bruised leg, and the doctor grabbed my healthy arm to help, and my finger broke. The doctor frowned. I was urgently injected with anesthetics and sedatives, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, my mother was sitting next to me crying. I was covered in all sorts of casts. Then they told me that I had this rare disease, the marble bone disease. It was terrible. I felt so alone, cut off from the world. From that moment on, I lived an incomplete life. Unfortunately, even though it was possible to cure this disease, the probability of it was very low. A lot of money was needed for a bone marrow transplant. Mom and Dad promised to get it, but it would take time. And for now, it was decided to isolate me from the outside world. They equipped me with a room made of cushioned furniture. They stopped hugging me, and everyone walked around me in tiptoes, as to not break anything. I got depressed from such conditions. And then I caught a cold because of a strong cough. Then 2 ribs broke. My mother got scared and they ordered me a special suit. It was like a hamster's ball, round, soft, with oxygen inside. I looked like a freaking clown inside that ball, but it was very soft on the inside, protected me from viruses and other harmful factors. Thanks to such a suit, I sometimes began to go to school, but more often I studied remotely, tried to get my old life, but it would never return. One evening, being on my computer, I met a girl. Her name was Emma. She turned out to be very funny and cool. For me, she was like a breath of fresh air on those gray days. We talked every day on the phone or chatted online, but I was in no hurry to tell her about my peculiarity. I was afraid that she would not want to talk to me further. Soon, Emma started hinting that we should go on dates, and I was looking for excuses to change the topic. Like any other girl, she got upset at me. I deleted her from social media. I hadn't felt that bad Even when I learned about my diagnosis, I put on my stupid suit and went for a walk. I felt like a clown in it. It even occurred to me that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I went towards the bridge to end things. A heavy downpour began. In this stupid suit, I could not see where I was running. My bones cracked with pain. Only then did I realize that I was running towards the house where Emma lived. Feeling courageous, I rang her doorbell. Her mother looked at me with a surprised face. I asked loudly where Emma was. She pointed towards the street. I saw that Emma was riding in a bike in pink sneakers, squinting in the rain, hurrying home. I ran to meet her on the wet asphalt. Suddenly, realized that I was not getting closer to her. I was exactly like a hamster in an idiotic wheel, spinning in one place when I thought that I had been running with all my might. This sight made Emma and her mother laugh like crazy, and I myself felt funny. She came up to me and I said that this is why we couldn't see each other. Emma carefully rolled me into her house. It's good that she had wide doors. I told her in detail about my peculiarity, but oddly enough, this did not bother her. She said that now she was even more interested in me. I tried to explain to her that most likely I would never be able to hug her. We would not be able to go to the cinema, cafes, and we would not be able to run through puddles either. But she only said that we should wait and see. I was inspired and happy to go home. That day, for the first time in a long time, I slept like a baby. Wow, I have a girl in pink sneakers, I said and smiled. A couple of days later, Emma and I met up again. She said that if we can't go to cafe, then the cafe would come to us. She drove me to a park, took out markers from her purse, and drew a table, chairs, and a menu on my suit. She sat down opposite me and pretended to call the waiter. At this time, she took out sandwiches and tea from her purse, and I quickly took my food inside. So we had lunch at a makeshift cafe. The next time she brought a laptop, drew people sitting next to me, and we imagined that we were in a cinema. I felt so happy. Emma came up with something new every day, and I could not even touch her. I was interested in everything that had to do with her, but this could not go on forever. In the end, reality took its toll. I could not fully integrate into her life. At the same time, it took up a lot of her time. I dreamed of surgery. I believed that if I was cured, everything would be fine. My parents worked as hard as they could, but there was still not enough money. And the moment came when I turned into a heavy burden and not a soulmate. No matter how painful it was, I wrote a farewell letter to Emma because I understood that it was necessary. Emma called me, texted me, but I did not answer. She sent me videos saying that I was cruel and unfair, and that I did not even ask for her opinion and made such an important decision for the both of us. I saw her tears and it tore my heart. It hurt more than when my bones broke. Little by little, I closed myself out from the world again. I stayed in my bedroom almost all the time. The support of my parents only annoyed me, but I ended my other friendships long time ago. 5 months have passed like that. And then, the unexpected happened. In the morning, the doctor who kept my medical history called us, and he told us the good news. A bone marrow donor was found and someone paid for my surgery. The sponsor has asked to remain anonymous. My mother was crying with happiness, but I couldn't believe it. Could I really live a normal life now? My heart was pounding inside. When we arrived at the hospital, I was immediately put on a gurney and taken to the intensive care unit. On the way, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emma. I raised myself to see her, but we had already gone into the ICU. The surgery was difficult and lasted hours. The donor was a guy I didn't know. He got into an accident and died. And before dying in that way, he decided to take care of his body. This was a 1 in a million chance, the doctor told me. After that, I was recovering for some time. I needed to take a bunch of meds and undergo examinations, but the worst was over. It was happiness for our family, and especially for me. I was wondering who helped me. I asked who paid for the surgery, but the doc said he didn't know. When I was discharged, I came home. Darcy came into my room. She still could not hug me. My little sister suddenly asked me who a girl in pink sneakers was. I was surprised. "How do you know about her?" I asked. And she said that all the time I spent in the hospital, she was there to see me. And then it dawned on me. I hugged Darcy tightly, kissed her forehead, grabbed a marker pen and ran out of the house. I ran as I had a year ago, again in the pouring rain. My own feet led me to her house. This time I stood all wet and knocked on the door. Emma went to the window and looked at me. I took a marker out of my pocket and drew on the window some menus, chairs, people, and at the bottom was the inscription, "Thank you for everything." Emma smiled and opened the door. It turns out that from the moment we broke up, she began to look for funding for my surgery. How she did it, I don't know, but my family promised to pay her off. Since then, I started a new life, and we decided not to throw that suit away. It's great to walk in it. You feel funny, like a hamster in a wheel. If you like the story, then press the like button and leave a comment.